Good evening. Welcome to Truth Seekers. My name is Mike Fishkin. Jay Saylor is off again this week. Sean Lavelle is again filling in for him.
Hello, everyone.
And for those of you, it's May 30th here in Portland tonight. Yeah, the date's up there, the phone number's up there. Hot day. It's been a hot week in Portland. Towards the end of May, if you're watching tonight, May 30th, Saturday night, you can call in if you'd like. If you've got comments or questions relating to spiritual questions, philosophical viewpoints. If you've watched before, you know where we're at. We've been doing this for a number of years. And if you don't, well, we show film clips, and then we invite people to call in. We've discussed many, many different subjects relating to spirituality and philosophical seeking for truth. And the last couple of weeks, if for those of you who are watching, you remember, we were talking and showing film of a gentleman speaking about the authenticity of Christ, the authenticity of the Bible. And he started out talking about history, and we were talking about that a bit last week, Sean, about that enemies of Jesus who did not want him around and did not want him doing the things he was doing, both from the Roman government, historians from Rome who were not partial to Christians wrote about Jesus being put to death under Pontius Pilate, and the Talmud, the Jewish Talmud, talks about Jesus being put to death because he was leading Israel astray with his sorcery. Of course, the Bible says Jesus did miracles, and they were calling it sorcery because they weren't too crazy about.
So they were acknowledging that the miracles were done. They were just attributing it to another power other than God. And then the other thing that some of these historians mentioned was even after Jesus died, and according to them, he wouldn't be able to rise from the dead, but yet all these Christians were willing to go and be burned or eaten by lions rather than deny that they had seen Jesus rise from the dead. So I don't know how many people you could get anywhere that would go and allow their whole families to be killed for what they know to be a lie. So, and this is outside of Christian history. That's what made it very important. These were people, the Roman government, other historians that were, if anything, very contra Christianity, and yet they're documenting all these actions as having taken place.
Right, and in addition to having seen Jesus rise from the dead, there were people who had seen miracles. They may not have seen him after he rose from the dead, but they saw miracles because Jesus went throughout Israel for 3 years healing people born blind, born deaf. So you can't fake someone born blind or born deaf. Everybody in the town knows.
That's right. And
who they
are. These
are.
Guys, by attributing the miracles to occult powers, they acknowledged that the miracles did happen.
Right, and they would have said they never happened if they could have.
It would have been easier to do that.
Yeah, but they did. And this guy in this film is going to get into some things that Jesus says that are kind of just bizarre unless he's someone very unique. And so we had history, and then we talked about prophecy last week a bit. And that, if you watched the program before, you know that we're really big on prophecy, that we believe that it proves that the Bible is a supernatural book, which leads you to see that God in this Bible is unique in all religions. Anyway, I searched through many of them before I became a Christian. And there's nothing like it. There's no other, lots of prophecies to any other person coming in history. Maybe somebody could pick one prophecy and kind of attribute it to another person, but there's dozens of prophecies here relating to Jesus very directly, and we talked about that.
And he would have had to organize events that were beyond his control to fulfill those. Like to be a Nazarene called out of Egypt and yet born in Bethlehem. Even if his parents had set up to do that, it probably would have been impossible because it was the Roman government that called for a census that brought him up to Bethlehem where he was born. So it just shows that God can control even the government. So,
and the fellow doing the film shared that he wouldn't have known that they were going to cast lots for his garments, and the things they were going to say, it was all prophesied through King David, and Jesus repeated some of that, but a lot of it, in the natural, if he had been making it up, there's no way he could have known all those things were going to be written about him afterwards. And Of course, there's many other things that happened where he had, and prophecies that he had no control over. If a prophet was wrong once in Israel, they're supposed to be stoned to death. And these prophets are never wrong. Jesus was never wrong with his prophecies.
A little bit different today, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit, different. Yeah, there's a lot of false stuff going on in Christianity.
And the Bible foretold that would happen too, didn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In Thessalonians, there'd be many false prophets, coming saying they're Christians. Jesus talked about it himself. And we're seeing so many of them today claiming to be prophets, yet they're wrong half the time. They think they can be wrong half the time. Well, how's anybody going to know whether you're false or true if you're wrong half the time? Jesus said you've got to discern the false ones from the true ones. How's anybody going to know unless they are wrong or right? That's silly. Jean Dixon was she didn't even claim to be a Christian. She was right maybe 40% of the time. So she could have been a Christian prophet if she said so. I mean, this guy, Todd Bentley, and some of those people associated with him, just totally off the wall. And some people, they warned about that in the Bible, saying, don't seek after signs. It's a wicked and adulterous generation, Jesus said, that seeks after a sign. The only sign I'm going to give you, he said, is the sign of Jonah. I'm going to be 3 days and 3 nights in the earth, just like Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of a big fish. And so Jesus there is attesting to the prophet Jonah and a big fish being true. I've seen some big fish, and I watch a lot of these wildlife stuff, and they can get whole people in some of these things. And so, and for God to make a super big fish to do his little thing, no problem whatsoever. Made the whole planet and everything in it. Well, anyhow, let's show this first section of film, which relates to some things that Jesus said that I think you're going to find interesting. We'll talk about that. And the first section is about four and a half minutes long. And we'll run it right now, and then we'll be back to talk with you in 4.5 minutes. And before we do that, some of you may be watching, we're just gearing this up. We're on the internet live. And you can find us through YouTube right now. It'll be up on our website soon, the link to the internet, so that any place in the world, your friends can call us. If they're watching.
And I can put on my internet glasses here and read the text as they come right up.
Yes, this is going to be interesting. We've had it for 2 weeks. We've just been playing with it, and we had one phone call from a local area, but they don't catch us live during the evening program, and another one on the East Coast last week who texted in a question. But we prefer, if you can, call in, because everybody can listen to the question or whatever you want to say and share. So with that, and you can find the link on YouTube. If you go to YouTube under Moab Edom, M-O-A-B-E-D-O-M, a brother in England puts our films up there, and he took the name Moab Edom, M-O-A-B-E-D-O-M, and on the upper left there in YouTube, Moab Edom, is the link to the internet. So you can give that to your friends and send it to them, and they can call us if they're so interested. So with that, let's show this first section of film, and we'll see you guys in about 4 minutes.
See you soon.
Or were they eyewitnesses? History, reality, prophecy. Let me tell you about the Jesus of authority. I want you to listen to Christ and watch him and the reaction of the crowds to him during his life. The common people, as you know, heard him gladly and said he preached like no one else. Well, maybe he was just very gifted. He was a marvelous orator, perhaps. But look at some of his claims. John 5, verse 18. He referred to God as his Father. Well, you say, not such a big deal in that either. We can all do that. Ah, yes, but you've got to understand what was going on at the time. You see, the Jews had no concept of God as a personal father like you as a Christian understand today. They had a concept of God as the father of the nation. They had a concept of God as the father even as their king. But they didn't consider God particularly as their personal individual father. They wouldn't take that enormous claim upon themselves. So when he said that God was his father, the Jews knew what he was saying. And we read in John 5:18, for this reason the Jews tried all the harder to kill him. He was even calling God his Father, making himself equal with God. They understood that. They knew what it meant.